Kingdom, we have a report from Caroline Kennedy on the Scottish seafood sector, warning again of the Brexit risking its future. Also joining us from EBC Greece, we have a live report by Helen Joy Benjamin. Hello, Helen.
Hi, Giancarlo. I will be giving an update on the COVID-19 situation in Greece.
Also joining us from EBC Switzerland, we have Mian Glauser. Hello, Mian.
Hi, Giancarlo. Thank you for having me. Today I'll be reporting about how Swiss military service adapts to the pandemic.
Thank you, Mian. We look forward to that report later in the show. And also from EBC Switzerland, we are joined by Christine Benedicto. Thank you for joining us, Christine.
Thank you for having me, Giancarlo. I will be talking about a project, 3 private schools in Switzerland, where they introduce notions of democracy to young 3 to 4-year-olds.
Thank you so much. Sounds like a very interesting story. We will also be ending our show, as always, with our view from our window. And this week comes from Spain and the Palau de la Música Catalana. But first, our main news stories this week. Some British hospitals resembling a war zone due to the influx of the coronavirus patients in the country's latest wave of disease. This grim assessment came as the United Kingdom announced of 1,820 fatalities from COVID-19, breaking Tuesday's record, be told, and taking the total number of deaths within 28 days of a positive test to 90,290. Britain's mortality rate has risen nearly 15% over the past week, as surging infection rates throughout December have now fed into increasing hospital admissions and deaths. The sobering situation follows the emergence of a new strain of the virus across the country in recent months, heaping fresh pressure on overstretched health services and the medical staff. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who has faced persistent criticism over his handling of the crisis, called the latest figures appalling and braced Britain for further bad news. After easing restrictions briefly for much of the country at the end of last year, Johnson imposed another lockdown earlier this month, while banking on an unprecedented vaccination drive to try to return life to normality. Britain is currently locked down for the 3rd time since the start of the outbreak earlier last year. Schools and non-essential shops are closed, social mixing and traveling are restricted. A review of these measures is due in mid-February, with hopes that these stay-at-home orders can begin to be lifted. French President Emmanuel Macron spoke this week to university students, many of whom had recently protested and expressed their solitude and financial uncertainty. On Thursday, President Macron said that students must have the same rights as workers. If needed, they must be allowed on campus at least once a week. He trusted that universities would work on implementing this in accordance with distancing measures in auditoriums and classrooms. Talking to students, he told them, given what your generation has already gone through, we cannot help but take into account your right to some on-site presence, to exchange with your teachers, and to meet with other students. Students will also be given access to 2 meals per day, worth €1 each, at the Restu restaurants or canteens located near universities. As from February, they will also receive subsidies in the form of vouchers for professional counseling with a psychologist or psychiatrist if they need one. The COVID-19 related restrictions are planned to remain in force in France until the summer. Okay, it's time for a break now, but please stay tuned for some more ENI UK and Europe edition.
shows and exhibitions were one of the most effective and engaging ways to connect with existing and potential customers. But the spread of COVID-19 changed all that with the large cancellations of both global and domestic events. Now that health and safety protocols and social distancing are a must, the days of the crowded trade show floors are so 2019. In this, MSMEs expand their businesses and continue to engage with customers.
Let's collaborate, let's communicate. Only together, we will become stronger.
David Abrenilia, the founder and chief events officer of Mediacom Solutions Inc., will join us in this week's Open for Business.
Tagisan ng Galing Part 2 Dance Edition.
Events happen around us all the time, in our community, in our country, around the world. Events that affect people, move communities, or simply inspire us. Interesting events that people need to know. In these interesting times, we continue to be a competent partner in delivering news about these events. Fast, accurate, balanced, eager news, because we live in interesting times.
Welcome back to E&I UK and Europe edition. Now for some more interesting stories from around the United Kingdom this week. We can go back live now to Ashley Spiritu on more about the British musicians' reaction to the Brexit deal. Hello again, Ashley.
Hello, Giancarlo. Thank you. More than 100 leading musicians on Wednesday criticized the government's Brexit deal with the European Union, writing in an open letter that performers had been shamefully failed. Leading musical lights, including Elton John, The Who's Roger Daltrey, and classical conductor Simon Rattle, wrote in the Times newspaper that the government's failure to secure visa-free travel for musicians would tip many performers over the edge. Pink Floyd's Roger Waters, Ed Sheeran, Oasis's Liam Gallagher, and Queen's Brian May also signed the letter, which spoke of a gaping hole where the promise-free movement for musicians should be. They outlined how red tape around touring and additional work permits for British performers in Europe will make many tours unviable, especially for young emerging musicians who are already struggling to keep their heads above water owing to the COVID ban on live music. Musicians and others in creative industries have railed against new travel rules with the European Union after Britain definitively left 27-member bloc at the end of the Brexit transition period in December 2020. A petition calling for a visa-free travel and cultural work permit with the EU has so far attracted more than 263,000 signatures online. The government in London has blamed Brussels, saying the EU had not offered 90-day visa-free travel for musicians. The EU's chief Brexit negotiator has denied opposing free movement of musicians, saying that ambitious proposals for mobility have been offered. The 100 musicians said the government needed to do what it said it would do and negotiate a reciprocal deal for paperwork-free travel. Britain, one of the countries worst affected by global health crisis, with over 90,000 deaths, has seen its £5.8 billion music industry hit hard by the pandemic. British music festival organisers say the virus has devastated the sector and warned the annual summer events could disappear without more government support and an indication of when music venues can reopen. Back to you, Giancarlo.
Thank you, Ashley, for bringing us this new story that we don't normally hear about in terms of the Brexit deal. What also has been the reaction of any other musicians to this Brexit matter?
Well, Giancarlo, there has also been a reaction from Radiohead frontman from York. He called Boris Johnson's government spineless, while Tim Burgess, frontman with indie band The Charlatans, accused leaders of treating artists with contempt. But a government spokesman insisted the EU was culpable. Even stars including One Direction's Louis Tomlinson and former Boyzone member Ronan Keating urged fans to support a campaign calling for a free cultural work permit. The visa would give free travel throughout the EU for music touring professionals, bands, musicians, artists, TV and sports celebrities. Back to you, Giancarlo.
Thank you, Ashley. With the amount that this deal has affected the music industry, has there been a statement from the Musicians' Union about this?
Yes, there has been a statement. Horace Trowbridge, General Secretary of the Musicians' Union, said Britain's rejection of the EU's offer was nigh on unbelievable. With the British music business having been devastated by COVID-19 and with no end in sight to the black hole of cancelled concerts, tours, festivals and regular gigs, the news, if true, is nigh on unbelievable, he said. Back to you, Giancarlo.
Thank you, Ashley, for bringing us another interesting story this week. We look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you for having me again, Giancarlo. I'm Ashley Spiritu, EBC London correspondent, and we live in interesting times.
Scottish fishermen protest against the Brexit export disruptions. A special report now by Caroline Kennedy, who gives us more details.
New post-Brexit rules could sink Scotland's fishing industry. Fishermen and seafood exporters have warned after chronic delays hit shipments in a sector that relies on rapid delivery of fresh produce. Britain formally left the European Union last January, but remained within its regulatory orbit until the end of the year under the terms of its divorce. Although two sides struck a free trade deal last month, avoiding trade tariffs and quotas, the UK departed from the European Union Single Market and Customs Union has resulted in remains of red tape. Scottish fishermen's lorries gather in the Parliament Square in London to protest against Brexit export disruptions that are putting their industry in jeopardy. This is what a fisherman runner of the shellfish business has to say.
Basically here to see if we can get some changes for our shellfish industry. It's after Brexit, it was nobody thought any of this was going to happen, but what they're asking us to do on a weekly basis just isn't possible with live shellfish. We're not going to get away with the paperwork side of things, but it needs to be streamlined for our business. It's just live shellfish doesn't work the way they're asking us to work it.
Some Scottish fishermen are reportedly choosing to keep their boats in the port rather than risk their catch being caught up in the delays. Instead of being shipped straight to the markets of northern France and onto the tables across Europe, highly sought out seafood shipments face going straight into landfills. Some others sail into additional 48 hours to offload their catch in Denmark, according to Bloomberg News. Reporting from United Kingdom, I am Caroline Kennedy. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Caroline, for bringing us that story this week. It's time for another break now, but please come back for some more ENI UK and Europe edition.
Attorney Aquino here at Hatley Castle, one of the filming locations for the X-Men series. Don't forget to tune in to Digital Nest only on Net25.
Factual.
We have to defeat the virus everywhere.
Timely information. Balanced, not only in the country, but also abroad.
I'm certain of one thing.
Interviews that people need to know. Watch Aguila Pilipinas! A one-hour newscast of reports coming from regional hubs in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Know the important updates in Asia in ASEAN in Focus. Track the latest stories in the provinces in Aguila Provincia. Tune into Mata ng Aguila, the evening primetime news program of Net25. Balanced and objective, Mata ng Aguila covers national and international issues, tackles news on business, health, science and technology, entertainment, sports and human interest features, and current events. And Eagle News International delivers the latest global reports, impartial, accessible, and up-to-date. It brings to fore EBC's rich international scope and access to valuable information streams.
Well, thank you to explain our help outdoor.
Catch these programs on Net25. You can also watch our news programs through eaglenews.ph and Eagle News Facebook page and YouTube channel.
How am I supposed to live without you?
I want to see you in sing-off.
You may
ang biggest talent competition on Philippine TV and online. Ito po ang Tagis na Nagaling Part 2 Singing Edition.
Welcome back to ENI UK and Europe Edition. Now for some more interesting stories from around Europe this week. To give us an update on the COVID-19 situation in Greece, we have Helen Joy Benjamin. Hello, Helen Joy.
As per the latest coronavirus update, we have a total of 150,479 cases, 5,570 deaths, and 138,748 recovered patients. The vaccination campaign in Greece started on December 27, 2020, but the vaccination for the general population began in Athens on January 16, 2021, and over 70,000 vaccinations have been carried out in the country so far. Primary schools and kindergartens reopened on January 11, but high school lessons are being held online only. Retail stores and hair salons reopened everywhere in Greece with strict entrance limits on Monday, January 18, except in areas with a high viral load, where the shops operates using the click-away method only. Although Greece's retail stores, shopping malls, and hair salons reopened on January 18, the country's 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. night curfew and movement via SMS will remain in force. Reporting for Eagle News International from Greece, I am Helen Joy Benjamin. We live in interesting times.
Thank you for that report, Helen Joy. We go to Switzerland now, where even their military service system has had to be adjusted due to the pandemic. We have Mian Glauser here to give us an update. Hello, Mian.
Hello, Giancarlo. Thank you for having me again. So, in Switzerland, military service has still a great importance, and every year, thousands of young people are on duty for a few weeks or a few months, depending on the type of service being done. However, in these times of pandemic, the Swiss Army had to review their system and organization in order to still be able to conduct the different types of services rendered by the thousands of soldiers every year. According to Daniel Rice, spokesperson of the Swiss Army, all 15,000 young people expected need to be tested for COVID-19, and those who turned out positive are put into isolation, which is why they have to stagger the start of physical service in barracks. Furthermore, as part of the changes, even within the troop, the soldiers have received different schedules on the time they will start so that everyone can be tested for COVID-19. Among the thousands who will be on duty, many are part of the troops that will be involved in case of a necessary COVID-19 mission. But not all the troops are starting the military duty in person. Many troops, in this case the combat troops, have to learn theory by distance learning before actually starting their physical services. The soldiers are free to manage their time as they want as long as they do the lessons required, which normally should take them around 6 hours per day. And even though it might be hard to monitor all the participants, there are ways to control that the lessons are done. Back to you, Giancarlo.
Thank you, Min. How can the Army help in the situation of the pandemic, like COVID-19 crisis that we are currently experiencing?
Well, the people when starting their military duty are distributed in different functions in the Army, depending on their professional life or their general knowledge and skills. Some of those functions are related to medical or health services, giving the necessary skills to the soldiers in these troops to help in hospitals if ever it was needed. Infantry troops are also trained in basic nursing skills that can be useful if hospitals need more workforce in case of a high number of positive cases. Another way the Army can be useful is in the case of closed borders. All soldiers are trained and have the skills to help in controlling border crossing. Back to you, Giancarlo.
Thank you so much for bringing us that interesting story this week.
Yeah, thank you for having me again, Giancarlo. I'm Anne Gloser reporting from the Geneva, Switzerland Bureau, and we live in interesting times.
Okay, we're going to stay in Geneva, Switzerland now. Joining us is Christine Benedicto on a project that is teaching children at a young age the basic notions of democracy. Hello again, Christine.
Hello again, Giancarlo. Switzerland is known for its direct democracy. Basically, its people can participate in decision-making and in politics. Swiss citizens can propose additions or changes to the constitution. They can even ask to vote on a bill that had been approved by the Federal Assembly. And also, any change in the constitution requires a mandatory referendum, meaning it needs to be put to a nationwide popular vote. What we have today is an example of a citizenship project of 3 private preschools in Lausanne, where these cute kids in snowsuits are introduced to a fun role-playing game where they get to learn about democracy, their right to vote, but also to have their say on things that have an impact on their daily life. The last time they voted was in November 2020, where they got to select the design of the flag of their little village. Here they have to vote whether voting going forward would be done by a show of hands or by a secret ballot system. We can see the kids dropping their envelopes containing their ballot, which they had filled out at home. The counting then takes place and the result is announced. This time around, hand-raising won, which delighted the majority of kid voters. But as for the minority who lost, organizers say helping them work through that frustration is part of the exercise. The next vote in a few months will be on their recycling system, and future topics may include their napping schedule, for example. So a fun yet educational and useful activity for the children to prepare them for the future. Back to you, Giancarlo.
Thank you, Christine. That looks like a great way to keep the kids entertained while they're learning. But I also see that this example is a private initiative. But are the youth taught about their civic rights and responsibilities in public schools there in Switzerland?
Well, yes, according to the organizers, the kids in these preschools very much look forward to their voting day. But now in public schools, civic responsibility and citizenship are topics addressed at different ages and ways in schools. Through class or school projects, but also through workshops and also as an actual subject in class. We vote around 4 times per year in Switzerland on approximately 15 topics on average. So democracy is indeed a very natural part of being Swiss.
Thank you so much for bringing us that story this week, Christine.
Thank you for having me, Giancarlo. I'm Christine Benedicto from Geneva, Switzerland. We live in interesting times.
Okay, we will end today's show with our view from our window once again. And today's view, we will go to Spain and the Palau de la Música Catalana. It was declared a World Heritage Site by UNESCO on December 4th in 1997, and it is an architectural treasure of the Catalan modernism, which today is an inevitable gathering place for the cultural and social life of Catalonian residents. Built between 1905 and 1908 by the modernist architect Luis Domènech, it's the only concert house in the world that relies on sunlight during the day as natural light enters through its stained glass windows. This video and photos are courtesy of Beverly Madrid from our EBC Spain Bureau. Thank you so much for this wonderful view, Beverly. And that's it from us this week. We hope you stay safe and keep positive as we continue to bring you more stories next week from around the United Kingdom and Europe. I'm Giancarlo Matera, and we live in interesting times.
Hindi kakaunting lakas ng loob ang kakailanganin ng isang anak para lamang ipahuli ang kanyang ama. Ang sobrang lakas ng loob ay hindi nakakabuti. Huling araw mo na ngayon dito sa hotel.
Ikaw. Iwan na natin ang Olvida.
Saan naman tayo pupunta?
Sa Maynila. Maghahanap ako ng trabaho doon.
Siguro naman hindi ko na kailangang ipaalala pa sa'yo kung sino ang nagpapaaral sa'yo sa mahal na university sa Maynila. Isa lang naman ang gusto kong kapalit, ang loyalty mo.
Romer, ayaw ko sanang sabihin pero...
Carly, sabihin mo na.